Warning: some material discussed in this video may not be suitable for sensitive viewers. On screen is a list of content warnings for sensitive topics covered in this video. Viewer discretion is highly advised. Also, as usual, please do not harass anyone who I talk about in this video. Anyways, the video shall begin now. Hello! The bracket has returned, and this time I'm doing something. Last year, a major milestone happened for me, as on March 29th, 2025, I reached 10 years of being active on YouTube. I know this account says I joined on May 21st, 2016, but shh! That's not canon, though I guess it's poetic of me that I've released this closer to my 11th, or the 10th for this one. But regardless, for most of that time, I've been focused on making brainy yet still goofy critiques. I might only make 1 or 2 a year these days, but that keeps them special. A full decade is a lot of time. More when you consider I've been on YouTube for around half of its life, and over a third of my own. That's also meant I've had plenty of time to really fudge things up. Which I have. So, for this special occasion, while I probably should make something more cheerful, I feel it's nice to reflect more critically on my output. As one matures, the more you realize the flaws in your previous work. And hey, why not make this a countdown while I'm at it? So let's take a nostalgic yet conscious look back at what I consider my worst videos. Before the list properly starts though, I'd like to clear some details up, addressing questions for what is eligible. While this list will be partially shaped by my own opinions in hindsight, I intend to keep this ranking relatively objective. Some issues are harder to brush aside as simple disagreement, so it's best I recognize undeniable flaws over outdated takes or small mistakes. Also, even with whatever I say against the videos featured here, I can't say that all are necessarily awful. Sometimes what kills them is centered around a few ugly moments, in some cases unrelated to what the video's main subject was. Other times it's from what I now consider mediocre insight on my part, less anything too major. Plus, even if I harp on these shortcomings, overall I'm still proud of many critiques I've done, past and present. It's all a learning experience, and we can't really improve without sucking sometimes. Lastly, before I get to the honorable mentions, there is some material which will not qualify for this list. Number 1. General shitpost content is exempt. Projects like Yoshi's Funeral, Parrot Cannot Be Trusted, and those April Fool's rant parodies are too unserious to be considered. Number 2. Miscellaneous content, like my 2018 CD collection video, intros, and channel updates, are also ineligible. These videos pose no good reason to be analyzed, especially for the channel updates, which are my most disposable. Year-end recaps I used to do are fair game still, since I feel they're fleshed out enough. Number 3. The entire Me Reads Dumb Comment series won't appear on this list. Like Reason 2, there's barely any point of analyzing them. Some do suffer from forced humor and dated commentary, but like Reason 1, aren't serious enough for consideration. And finally, number 4. Any videos from before 2017 are disqualified. The reasons for this should be obvious. I was still new to this whole public video thing. For 2015, my uploads were either unfiltered randomness, unwatchable recordings of video games and the Weather Channel, or the mere saplings of my criticism-focused work. Quite a few videos I probably shouldn't have uploaded to the public in my earliest days. But that just comes from being a dumb baby on the internet. 2016 saw me shift directly into the critiques and related projects. While better presented overall, they were still early attempts from my mid-teenage years. You can say the same for some early 2017 rants of mine, but those at least became more passionate and fleshed out. That year also marked my channel's overall peak, both in audience and especially quantity of those videos made. Only in recent years have I regained the former, and perhaps the videos shown on this list could explain why. As for any videos done before I joined YouTube, well, my 2012 self has the perfect response for that.
I was dumb!
Of course, this list is subject to change as time goes by. But with all that done, let's start with the dishonorable mentions.
Mr. Pull the Off-Focus Rambler.
This is mainly going here, as I tend to forget this was a commentary I even made. It was done in a period of strong productivity, but even then, I never felt much passion in this one. Like the original pufferfish video I covered, my commentary was bland and limited. Really, it's only memorable for being related to my successful rant on the infamous Matruko 11, and my first response using the actual source footage for what I was talking about. Nothing that bad, but there's no reason to watch it today.
Playing victim mindlessly.
The second of 2 riffs from late 2017, scolding a Go commentator pest named Farhan the Movie Guy. And as he became a critical thinker outside the box much later, he ironically became worse off than my 2017 self could have imagined. That says a lot, considering I was brutal in how I presented him in all 3 videos I ranted about him. This one being by far the most hostile, which makes watching this one really unpleasant for me. Not helped by the guy being 14 when this happened. Sure, I had a right to be frustrated. He was and continues to be an immature jerk even after losing any teenage excuses. I just wish I wasn't as spiteful during it all. Despite my regrets of rage though, I still hold most of my actual points. And yes, I'm still keeping that promise of never giving him a 4th video.
Old days retrospective PowerPoint paradigm.
Oh hey, this was a past attempt at reflecting on my old work. In hindsight though, this was one I was never truly satisfied with. The project itself was never completed, leading to my own regrets for hyping that crap up from the start. Ironically, regret also came from how unfair I was towards these prototypical works. My commentary was also not that great, but it's for a specific reason which will become relevant later on.
God Goof loves headplans.
This inclusion is an interesting one, since if you cut out the part where I discuss this obsessed Space Goose shipper's YouTube channel, I'd consider this to be an alright video. Unfortunately, it was that section which was particularly lazy. Even besides anemic insight and deadpan delivery, the editing was rife with mistakes too, and it's not even because I changed editing software. A few of my interjections got jumbled up. One case I didn't even record for some reason. Other than that, it's fine, so it misses this list.
Rocco's bigoted gatekeepers.
Breadtube bracket didn't turn out so great. Shocking. And no, this isn't about my values flipping or whatever. Anti-woke grifters are still a nuisance, and I'll stand by my queer buds no matter what. Those geezers had no good reason to complain about Rocco's modern life becoming woke. A transplant is well within the series' wheelhouse, even for a 90s show. However, how dense do you have to be to deny that it was Joe Murray's decision, you absolute fucking chud? Yeah, this oversensitive shit just makes you a target for general ridicule. Never mind harassment from the right. I guess I'm lucky most of the backlash came from ignorant observers with lame arguments, plus a small few pathetic trolls. While some criticisms from those responses are sound, and my overall contempt for that kind of person remains deep, spite was a major motivator, and it shows. Glad that never happened again.
Packaging some cringeworthy bait.
This video's whatever, I just need to comment about ED goddamn P being in the thumbnail for part 2. Gee, I wonder why that has under half the views of part 1. Do you see me fucking laughing? The squad isn't.
Venting about enter.
Yeah, even my fairly fresh stuff is eligible. This case though, considering how much Enter's reshaped himself after this turning red debacle, feels like an ancient relic despite being only 4 years ago. Other than some mediocre points directed at his trending flub up, my portrayal of Enter felt like it was stuck in my latter 2010s anti-Enter phase in moments. And if it wasn't that, I harped too much on his controversial social opinions, even vaguely connecting him with the alt-right, unfairly. Those mistakes I was so regretful of not long after release, I put my critical lens in the other direction in a follow-up. Some emotional problems did remain, but it was much better balanced. Partisan and foggy judgment aside, I was at least fairly insightful for the main focuses, his review and the crash out after trending.
2022 a year in recap.
Having thought about this lately, my short tradition of covering the previous year to kick off a new one was a failed experiment. Besides only the first attempt releasing on cue, nearly all were overly negative if not paranoid. That latter problem was one I sought to remedy for my 2022 installment regarding the subject of generative AI, but in practice, the irrational fear just got replaced by bitterness rivaling what I said as a teenager. Obviously more articulate than back then, though remaining unpleasant, which doesn't solve the overall issue. Nor has it aged well with how much AI has intruded our lives since then. At least I was right on the mark about Elon. Fuck that guy. Last of the honorable mentions. This one probably shouldn't count, but I was so connected with this project I'm placing it here anyway.
The Litterbox Critic. Why Doodle Tunes failed.
The review itself isn't too relevant, but rather my role in its production. Not only was I a guest feature, I even co-wrote and edited the video for her. Our conclusions are notably mismatched from what should be a collaborative work, like 2 reviews were merged into one. What is damning though is how my emotions and biases hurt the script. Some parts I wrote were clearly made to vent against not only Doodle Tunes' creator Jack based on his social media posts, but the entire culture of his scene. Some claims were just provocative, like calling Doodle Tunes worse than Cartoon Mania. A lot of those were given to the review's host despite me being the one who wrote them. But something worse I wanted to inject was a grudge on some unrelated Twitter cartoonist since he took criticism I gave to a Doom post of his really badly. Even besides being off topic, it felt malicious on my part. I'm glad the Litterbox Critic intervened against such inclusion, so that was left out. But regardless, I do apologize for screwing this project up with my bitterness. Phew, I know I spent a lot of time on just the contenders which didn't make it. Now, the real list shall begin. If you were to ask my 2013 self what I loved most, it would probably be Microsoft Sam reading nonsense. If not that, I sure would have tried to mimic him with my answer. What if instead, someone told past me that in 5 years, I would roast said hyperfixation online at length? What? That is unbelievable! Exclamation mark. Don't worry about the upset though. Also tell him that I would come to view this project as a slight mistake. Though I worry what that would mean if the timeline were altered. I could have become the real-life Super Ball.
It's in the job description, sir. Report all stage whispers, soliloquies, and casual asides to the proper authorities.
Curse them! They've thought of everything!
Although, did I really sound much better in this era?
TTS can be traced back to a variety of things, like Cowbelly Common Awards, one of the worst series known to man.
Really now? Just sounds boring as hell when you put it that way. Like my own shit. Dull delivery aside, I'm not particularly fond of the direction I took for this rant about text-to-speech culture. I guess if there's one place to start, I took heavy inspiration from another YouTuber. Unfortunately not one you can really search for nowadays, but no matter. I don't discuss really any history about said computer voices either, besides their implementation in music. And I'm not talking about Kraftwerk in the 80s or even popular examples. No, my choices were fairly obscure hipster stuff that wasn't even too old. Just barely older than the online scene I was highlighting. Hell, even if I wanted to keep this completely relevant to the Microsoft Sam theme, there was a novelty song starring him from 2004.
So treat me wise. I'm in pressure in the house.
I guess it's good I didn't dig at it being used as an aid for those with impaired speech, like Stephen Hawking. Too bad I already tried mapping out quote-unquote autistic subcultures, linking a bunch together. This was partially because the influence I cited, a guy literally named Sicktard, did the same. It may not have been totally serious. Why else are Milk Before Cereal weirdos listed? Still, given how much I mock the condition, one I have for the record, I'm not too proud of that. Admittedly, spotty context or casual ableism isn't why I consider this video to be disappointing. Trust me, there will be worse in both areas as the list progresses. It's more the lack of actually thoughtful input on a specific brand of text-to-speech content most of this video was about. Logo bloopers. Videos which I didn't seem capable of riffing well in late 2018, as much of my comments are either lame jokes or similarly confusing references like those in logo blooper episodes. This is after admitting I had trouble finding material in the standard Microsoft Sam stuff.
Suffice to say, it's hard to riff on these types of things, partly because there isn't anything inherently wrong with the genre. Its whole purpose is to stir laughs from the viewers, not to pull off a complex narrative or serious storyline, most of the time. Point being, I can't really criticize the series as a whole without poking fun at their humor tastes.
And as it turns out, it wasn't much better for the more flawed blooper genre.
Must not make a Gamers Rise Up joke.
The jury rejected your claim of self-defense and you are justly sentenced to death.
Also, look at my Robloxian body!
Either that, or I get political, for reasons.
A future which some radical liberals want. Ironically, Viacom's as capitalist as they come.
Yeah, cool. Gripping political commentary over a cheesy Viacom pun. Green genius. You should run for Congress. I'll say this video doesn't necessarily have too much wrong. It does pick up in quality in its second half. The ending is unexpectedly wholesome considering the cynical tone otherwise. I understand how this could be one of your favorites, but I think even from an objective lens, there was so much I could have discussed better, cutting out some fat along the way. It's definitely something I want to discuss again, since especially in the logo blooper community, it has evolved considerably in the past 8 years. Either that or the shit I was reviewing then was already way outdated. That's not even getting into the rise of generative AI and how that's fundamentally changed text-to-speech technology, for better or worse.
What you doing, been at home?
Well, me and my family just like hanging out.
Guess we'll find out whenever I retread this ground. I'll just say that if you want something more humorous from me about text-to-speech culture, check out this parody I did a few months earlier called Text-to-Speech Videos Summarized in 10 Minutes. There was even a sequel to it I considered developing in 2022 because I did find some unironic entertainment in that. It's unfortunately unlikely to be finished though due to the usage of AI voices before that was considered morally dubious. Though for the mighty number 9 on this list, moral correctness sure didn't mean squat to me. The mid-2010s are such a bizarre cultural period, an era that shaped so much of my life. Some good things, plenty bad. One case that gave me mixed feelings, even by 2017, was the state of the DeviantArt ranting community. That year marked a major fracturing of what I once thought was a fairly organized collective. Yeah, some would take their own spins of covering DeviantArt material, but usually it didn't blaze into any major controversy. Most you'd hear before were some complaints of the ranters being too mean-spirited and encouraging harassment, criticisms made against ranters from the very start. However, by 2017, many like me noticed drama and infighting causing trouble at concerning levels within the community, and because my own outlook on this DeviantArt critic space was very complicated, I threw my hat in the ring for a fairly unique video in my catalog of its time. It's the only one of my critiques given the label of a BracketNeutron perspective, a format which was meant to express thoughts on broader topics which I never expanded upon. This would cover multiple elements and factions of its community within that time, which was rather ambitious and a great idea. How this ended up on my worst list though, even with its high potential, even surprises me. But since my reasoning and attitude have shifted a lot since 2017, my insight was likely destined to age weirdly. To begin with, I wasn't exactly equal in my treatment of each category. One in particular, the less morally correct ones, I expressed favoritism for on a base level. Okay, yes, I did criticize the tryhards who went too far with insults or unhelpful criticism in that segment. Problem was, my priorities were based far too much against perceived oversensitivity. Given this was during the height of my anti-SJW phase, this isn't surprising. What is questionable though is how much promotion I put onto ranters to add or keep what could be considered offensive humor in, like that was an essential thing to respect. One channel I singled out for this was among its biggest, Solar Sands, a former inspiration who slowly morphed into vanilla pudding as his stardom rose, combined with his ego and a viewer base of parrots.
His annoying personality isn't the only thing that bothers me. Oftentimes, he sounds way too morally correct. What I mean by this is that he goes on boring explanations on why a piece of art is bad. I guess he doesn't want to be called edgy by anyone.
Edgy content was getting a strong backlash even within this corner, so I presume Solar was appeasing normies by becoming less challenging.
As upsetting as it sounds, I doubt he ever will become less vanilla, as when a YouTuber becomes popular, the audience soon gets more control. Which is what happened. In this example, he became more egotistical and even told people to watch his videos of the people who criticized him partially. You get why I said he was morally correct yet?
The general complaints may have had some merit, though it was obvious what I really wanted to defend.
So if you've seen his videos, he has made some suicide and autism jokes before. I'll actually like him more if he had the balls to tell more sensitive jokes, but it feels uncommon. At the same time, I don't want it to take him over like it has for some people.
Yes, those jokes sure helped his content on an objective level, I'm sure.
Even more glorifying is that he sometimes dismisses criticism since he assumes he will automatically be called the neo-Nazi Narrows Q. Methinks the Leafy and Keem complainers really can't handle jokes of any kind.
Look, I get my intended audience was very plugged in within that time, but who was gonna understand that reference? I hate that now I have to explain it. If you're not aware of him, Narrows Q was some oddball attention seeker and a glazer of Powerpuff Girls 2016 a decade ago who was mocked for being edgy and bad at handling backlash. His thumbnails often had him beat up his subjects, with his introductory video even showing him slicing up Rebel Taxi. Now tell me, on what grounds does this comparison make sense? Yes, it was intentionally exaggerated based on how the DARC treated even implied edge by this point, but there should still be some logic in this comparison. I didn't even show evidence to suggest someone was reacting this way to critics. Never mind that Narrows' relevance didn't last. Also, people weren't just ripping at Leafy or Keemstar because of insensitive jokes. One made a career off calling kids cringe, and the other milked YouTube drama and had a record of open bigotry stretching for years. Even without that, some had fair reasons to criticize jokes made about mental health or disabilities. A lot were directed as insults or used to push genuine ableism. I'm not accusing Solar or all these others of doing precisely that, but even as someone who still believes that oversensitivity is a problem, they have a point. But perhaps this was a case of culture shock on my end, given that edgelord humor was traditional online and was more accepted even a year prior.
Due to the rise of overly pandering and unoriginal DA critics, it has turned the ranting community into an uninteresting eyesore. No one wants to be involved in a community that doesn't have the audacity to tell a slightly offensive joke, or one that has mudslingers basically calling any piece of art they don't like to be an insult to drawing, and that drawing has rules.
Really, my problem is less how apparent my biases were. This was an opinionated video after all. However, I chose this moment to get on a soapbox against unchallenged collectivism, even towards an unrelated group I had hatred for. Out of nowhere, too.
I myself want to be free of IGWave retards secretly wanting me to become part of their shitty fucking group by changing their standards. No matter what you douchebags do, I will never be a part of it. I want a more diverse and dedicated fanbase, not one with people who say the same thing every time and mirror what I say.
Alright, Aristotle. Save that for when you do talk about Go commentators. 'Twas just a month in the making. It's just weird, considering I ended up echoing views from those I looked up to as well. A name that I repeatedly praised was a more aggressive alternative to Solar Sand's, Super Menace. I was inclined to be against the community more since he left it and expressed similar problems to mine. This includes defending him when he was allegedly attacked by Solar's fanbase, once again without proof.
This also led to one of the former kings, the fandom Menace, to be wrongfully attacked by his White Knights. It's ironic as TFM already had a bad watch base to begin with.
But most importantly, the entire reason this video came to existence was built around a reviled art critic of her time named Sav Draws, written off extensively for her flippant use of the term edgy and inability to take advice. She was the first relevant name I mentioned, and the only one to receive her own dedicated chapter. We'll ignore the one on the morally correct mostly being about Solar Sand since that was an issue I applied to many. But unlike the other targets, my input on Sav Draws was entirely based off outside opinions.
This semi-popular subculture on YouTube has gotten some flack recently, mostly with the user Sav Draws. And I must say, the distaste for people like her is justified. All she really does is smear certain artists, passing it off as critique, but she goes bonkers when you dare criticize her.
My insight was so non-existent, I just pointed to other sources for my arguments.
YouTube Dude 101 and Ponder Sprocket did a great commentary on one of her OC rants, giving me a less positive look at the DeviantArt ranting community. She even has a tendency to shout the word when a character doesn't even fit in the line of the actual definition. This comment describes the whole thing better than I ever could.
Couldn't you tell I just wanted to join the crowd on this one without the effort? It's real jarring with how the rest of this video does revolve around my views, some loudly contrarian, but apparently not here for the most disliked figure. Besides those flaws in argument, the flow and presentation was also a mess, even despite having themed chapters. There was of course the random jab at user group fans I played earlier, but also a prolonged skit making fun of the most boring, unconstructive ranters.
Hello guys, this is good DeviantArt reviewer here. I'm gonna do...
This didn't need to go on for a full minute. Problems also arose from my random editing, rather one specific unrelated image I used when talking about Solar Sand's influence harming individuality, a virtue I couldn't even practice.
Because of this, no one is allowed to have any character or distinction, and because he is the most popular,
You issue a copyright claim under his company name? First of all, when I oopalawed that video he just stole it from me? Most certainly not. Maybe I should have used a less conflicting image. Something like that can lead to confusion. The randomness also extends to the very beginning of my critique, since I cover assorted things in there briefly like my choice in Avatar and the minions.
you can see them on napkins, candy, Kiss cartoon, and inevitably, it will appear on butt plugs, because who doesn't like shoving Tic Tacs up their ass?
Minion butt plugs are highly coveted in whatever I'm talking about, I promise. In the end, while this was a really messy attempt at reviewing many parts of the BARC, it's not one I feel that ashamed about or anything. This just wasn't quite in my oeuvre yet. Its placement here stems purely on how biased and mediocre my analysis was, even in that time. But before we move on to Henry VIII, I shall also mention that one subject I ignored here will be relevant considerably later on in this list. Bonus points for those who know.
Hope you get diabetes, bitch.
Home video and user cult. Seems unnatural for them to coalesce into one, but they have. Nostalgia really is a bitch. But even before I put a spotlight on the home video hive mind in 2023, I was well aware of this community and their ties to GoAnimateisms. Thus, in April 2017, directly following up the successful Matruko rant, my eyes were set on a few interesting portions of it, ones who congregated around home video openings and DVD menus. Though despite the subject being well within my forte, I took things in a dumb direction. Let's start with the main issue. Half my arguments were built on straw man or prejudice. At the time, I considered that community to act very selfish about their uploads, proud of their poor quality and lack of originality. At its connection to user groups I already had strong feelings against, it was destined to be unfair.
In the mind of a lover of these videos, here's what I think was conjured up by these people.
Now, I'm bummed to make original content. I don't have a creative bone in any of my body. So England's going to make a DVD opening of these and a DVD menu walkthrough of this.
But wait, what is really that wrong with uploading archives of your video collection? Nowadays, most have at least some respect for media preservation. Even before 2017, this content was well liked, especially to relive childhood memories. Believe it or not, none of my arguments against it had to do with nostalgia worship. I did make a few solid critiques, like the ugly camera recorded ones and talking down to viewers when showing their physical media off, but I had this one itty bitty strike against them in particular which defined my viewpoint. Isn't this actually copyright infringement? Technically, yes, 2017 Bracket. Why do you give a fuck? Does your dad work for Disney? Do you want to know why I was hung up on this detail so goddamn much? Blame this stupid Clay Claymore video. In early 2016, after all sorts of reviewers were fed up of YouTube's copyright system, a fairly successful movement under the hashtag Where's the Fair Use would start, demanding of respect to the Fair Use statute and less abusive copyright laws like the DMCA and YouTube's Content ID system. Channel Awesome and nearly every other group which transformed copyrighted content of the day supported this movement. Reasonably so. Their source of viewership and revenue was usually hit majorly by these copyright claims even when disputes were resolved. That's ignoring examples of claims being fraudulent or done out of censorship. But remember, this was during an intense contrarian phase of mine, fueled by hatred of certain types who promoted the cause like Mr. Enter. I sided with Clay with the argument that these reviewers were acting entitled about YouTube earnings. I was also bitter about the Where's the Fair Use slogan being unanimous online, often on work which wouldn't legally qualify. Even reviewers, who had the benefit of the law protecting criticism of copyrighted works, I thought were pushing its limits by showing too much footage and monetizing said videos. This was despite there being no imposed maximum footage limit to determine fair use or not. Besides, media reviewing is an actual job, so they should be allowed to earn something. Naturally, for any hip movement that was spread online, it bled deeply into the media archive community, which includes those who upload copyrighted home video recordings. Uploads which are hard to defend in court as transformative unless they served an educational purpose. While I wasn't fully against Where's the Fair Use as a movement, I essentially played the unpopular civilian role as a copyright absolutist.
And like most dipshits who think they can do whatever they want, this is their defense pretty much every time.
By the way, this is very original. Fair use. So this video is protected under fair use, so if any company wants to try and claim this video, well, it's a false copyright claim by default because, fair use.
This wouldn't be the worst video of mine to carry this mentality, as my Starfish Network rant from 2016 also cited copyright infringement as a strike against that. That, however, wasn't eligible for this list due to my rule against videos before 2017. Regardless, it was a stupid argument to make as ammo, since it came off as bootlicking the media establishment. The streaming age and its failures have only proven the benefit of media preservation, by any means necessary. Plus, no one likes a scab. Naturally, I've conceded out of this fringe attitude. But as for its connection to user groups, most of the really bad stuff I presented was unrelated to their home video hobbies. Like this clip here showing a member's meltdown over a troll.
Yeah, Sing is out in cinemas, and Blu-ray Sing came out in 2017, and it was on DVD. Sing was released in theaters, you idiot! Or you watched the trailer on the internet!
Good for a laugh, perchance? That's all it was really put there for, even if it was only tangentially connected to the subject. So yeah, it's easily up there in moments which age like apple juice left in the heat. Fortunately, as I mentioned before, a better dissection of the home video community would come around 6 years later, one that was both insightful and comedic. Now if you excuse me, I'm gonna go record some VHSs on my shitty webcam.
Safe.
God damn it, I've gone full on God.
Boxies, boxies, boxies. Oh, how I've had a weird relationship with thee. This is one of 3 videos I made related to the Package Reviewer, a DeviantArt critic YouTuber who I was formerly mutuals with. While the other 2 were done about others who poorly criticized him, my first saw me responding to selected rants of boxes during his humble beginnings. I also poorly criticized him, but not for the reasons you might expect. The videos I chose were definitely worth covering with their flawed logic, blandness, and his obsession with using the pedo term even on young teens, but my insight, or lack thereof, wasn't very bright besides the last point. For one, I put a strange emphasis on his mid-ass humor, more or less mocking it.
Yes, we must all wash our hands to get rid of the satanic germs with holy water.
Hecking funny as heck joke.
You see, I was more cultured with my humor compared to this lame-o.
Well, I guess you don't have the same level of humor that I do, and the ones you do have are more forced than mine.
This exact rant says otherwise, buddy.
Ooh, nobody gives a shit!
I have the power of God and Joji on my server. Jokes can never carry meaning. Wow, screw Cartoon Justice Warriors.
Why? Why the fuck would you create this?
For funsies? What, you're anti-fun? Well, frick you, mum. Hashtag no fun allowed. Gotta queue up that frickin' Green Day.
Oh, come on. Green Day is the antithesis of no fun allowed. Yeah, I know humor's up to personal taste, but I don't think my humor was much better. If anything, it was more obnoxious. From my actual jabs at Box though, which weren't meant as jokes, most are woefully empty. Some of the weakest attempts at criticism in my entire career, including the really early rants. It's possibly below Box's level.
Not only has he disabled the comments on all of these, but he redesigns these pictures for reasons that practically no one gives a crap about.
Ace cares about it. Liar.
They are siblings, which is incest, and incest is wrong.
Incest is wrong. Boldest statement of the year, people.
And if it wasn't that, I was just laughing at the dumb things Box resented of his rant targets.
6. Level out. Put soup items in the pool. I don't care if it tastes like chicken noodle soup.
Serious. This journal is a goldmine of hilarity.
This was a recurring problem I've seen plague a lot of my critiques from 2018, including the Texas Beach and Old Days retrospective projects. There was this compulsive need to add some layer of irony to my critiques, along with in-jokes very few other than me or friends would get. Call it my quirk, call it irony poisoning, whatever. That took priority over actual criticism in most 2018 videos like this, because in my mind, I thought that made them entertaining. Though of all projects to suffer from this, the Box critique was likely the worst. At least the other subjects were also relatively unserious. Heck, my problem with the review on my PowerPoint stuff was actually that it was too self-critical. Box, however, was an actual DA critic who handled things very similar to mine. Silly at times, yes, but generally meant to be serious. Worse yet, these comedic additions just came off as me grasping at straws, shoehorning cut-ins to assert my dominance or whatever. And that connects to another flaw which persisted for a bit, my bloated ego. Besides criticizing Box for his input being generic, derivative of others in his space, which was a fair complaint, I even accused him of copying me specifically.
Gee, I wonder which one of your pictures got reported. I'm pretty sure this comment chain speaks for itself about his hypocrisy.
Do any of you remember the section of my Matruko 11 rant where I made a load of comments and jokes surrounding various memes he created?
Yeah, totally not a kiss up to the majority of the animation community. I know who I'm rooting for.
It seems like a couple got inspired from that slightly incoherent format.
Now, to be clear, there was an example I ran into before this that did plagiarize my work. I'll keep their name anonymous here, although I did mention them in the original critique. Alas, I don't have any of the offending videos archived to prove this, so take what I say with a grain of salt. It is worth noting that Box did list them as an influence, which could explain any uncanny similarities. But even with that background, my ripoff claims were selfish and a stretch. I even admit I wasn't that original myself.
I'm afraid I'm too derivative of a ranter. I should try to think of more creative lines in the future, so when someone reminds me of my own work, it's harder to excuse.
I was fortunately less uppity about potential clones after this point, only helped by a decline in my own relevance in the following years. Unfortunately, we'll see more of this boxy crap creep in soon. But speaking of creeps and egos, that may be a good segue for the number 6 with extra dip on this list.
Also, smoking is very hazardous to your health, you know.
No Dippin' Dots.
If you want to know where my overall rant direction, even overall mood would change drastically, it begins around March 2019. Partly influenced by the cultural shift, that month saw the release of my first 100% serious rant not marked as a secondary video. This was, predictably, about the frightening social climate following the Me Too movement. It especially spiked when Tumblr, a site rife with hostility, made the controversial move to ban faintly pornographic content en masse. As a result of this crackdown, many turned to Twitter, already a cesspool for hate-fueled activism, thus igniting what we now call cancel culture and its guilt by association dogma and weaponized altruism enter the mainstream. Even major companies got involved by firing certain celebrities based on jokes or tweets which wouldn't fly today, sometimes ones from a decade ago. My video never referred to it as cancel culture though, I just went with a similar label, call-out culture. That's a semantics flaw at worst though. Honestly, given my takes on the matter have aged shockingly well in hindsight and were still well educated, this probably shouldn't be on the list. Connections with the attention economy, unfair societal expectations, political mudslinging, and disproportionately affecting the less privileged, all claims I made which hold truth. Issues which would get worse after 2019, the pandemic years in particular. Such culture was also engaged in majority by hardcore progressives, who enforced an extreme left-wing purity standard and fueled more hate on both sides. Only more recently with the far right in power has that pendulum swung. wrong. It's impossible not to bring up the politics of the matter if you want to stay accurate. However, there are two flaws I'm singling out as to why it belongs this high up. That thing about ego, I definitely applied this from personal anxiety of being cancelled based on my past. Most of it about previous right-wing beliefs or engaging with art online deemed problematic.
Someone who's an outsider and has only discovered me from this older work can target me as some sort of alt-right nitwit based off those political views that, for the most part, I don't hold anymore. On top of that, they can manipulate an entire fan base to believe I still hold these frankly terrible values nowadays. And if it's not for something like formerly being a right-winger, it could be that some art I made or liked was considered problematic.
This was a time when many were becoming genuinely worried about their careers. My belief was that, if it happened to James Gunn or Kevin Hart, it could happen to you. As a result, my anxiety led to fear-mongering about the subject. Not that I could blame myself given how bloodthirsty the culture is, I just over-exaggerated and sounded defeatist. Besides, those discharges were often short-lived, or those affected at least found work elsewhere. But dear lord, that's micro-spuds compared to a particularly nasty fuck-up on my part. One so bad, this video isn't even publicly listed on my channel anymore. Something even the videos coming up aren't cursed with. Yet. For context, I made a claim about baseless pedophilia statements being the worst when it comes to these callouts. Those naturally have the highest chance of tanking reputations of the accused, which is why they're abused by parties for nefarious reasons. Claims like those should be viewed under heavy investigation and skepticism. While discussing this, I made an argument with such atrocious wording, it read as unintended apologia for CSAM artists. I'm gonna play the clip, but I'll throw a disclaimer here because of how gross it sounds. It's already out there, so there's no use hiding it.
I don't want to defend any child porn artists too much.
Ew. The fact I even alluded to defense was a major problem, particularly if the claims about them were true.
Here's the thing. Some random profiles have been targeted for their non-CP work by association.
Dude, it doesn't matter what content this is directed at. As long as the person was proven to be drawing pedophilic shit or groomed actual minors, there is a level of guilt on everything else they post, especially if it's in a community minors occupy. And even if this was about random viewers who interact positively to such offending work, that's still not worth defending anyone, legally or morally. Fair not to assume the worst out of them, but still. You wanna know the kicker though? I even cited a counter-argument made about similar sus trash in context, and how that's been used for the purpose of grooming. And
a common argument I see is that the other work they draw, typically cute stuff, is used to groom minors. Which at least sounds partly reasonable if you know history.
I just give up on that whole argument. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because if I expressed any vague excuse of their actions, I'd be seen as a pedo sympathizer. Yes, there are indeed a lot of nuances to things like these that should be considered. People who hate stuff like lolicon and bestiality within good reason do unfairly extend it to innocent cute art, furry stuff, etc. Prejudice for communities, even if they do deserve critique, makes it worse. It's why some at least accept the fiction argument in certain contexts, even if it's abused by predators. Still, it's ill-advised to defend those accused when there's little benefit of a doubt. So yeah, I'm sure you can see why an otherwise solid stand against cancel culture belongs on this list. Even if I never meant to defend pedos in any capacity, some mistakes are just too fatal. This is true as well for our number 5 contender.
I can't even fathom how greasy your neck grid might be. Ew.
The video going on the number 5 spot is Blocky vs. the Boxies, a very recent entry in my catalog. Here's the thing, I already discussed nearly everything wrong with it at length last June, so if you want a detailed explanation of the errors I made, both visibly and mentally, please go watch that. Nevertheless, I'll still provide a summary since handing out that much homework on you is a sin. Throughout the spring of 2024, I focused on an obscure ranter dubbed Mr. Blocky. That March, he made a faulty and antagonistic call-out against a previously discussed packaged reviewer. Said person was also found to be preaching his views against the guy and his community on tweets mentioning him. Overall, he was judgy and inclined to think the worst of Box and his fans. This was largely because Box's treatment of alleged pedos varied, with a few minors being slandered as such in his early years. Despite some good rebuttals and context provided, my rant on Blocky was equally judgmental and petty. All the while, I got blindsided by an imposter of his on Twitter and handled handled that irresponsibly, which still made its way into the finished rant after knowing it was fake. I was also weirdly uncritical of Box in places where I shouldn't have been, appearing more like a fanboy than a well-meaning observer. Most ironically, given my previous entry on this list, the conclusion of my rant read like a Twitter call-out or desperate Google Doc.
Blocky is someone you should not engage with. He doesn't give a lizard's ass about helping victims. He's basically cut from the same cloth as a Go commentator who wanted to be drama alert, with a similar lack of self-awareness or concept of time.
I explicitly told my audience to distrust Blocky due to my ugly encounters, which you think I'd do better than since I criticized him for cancel culture-esque preaching. However, the worst moments aren't about Blocky though. This might have only ended up on the 8th or 9th spot if it weren't for how I portrayed an alleged teenage victim who bashed against Box and his fans, after accusing them of grooming, victim blaming, and harassment. I used that opportunity to scold said victim in almost heartless fashion, disrespecting him based on distrust and past offenses. Yes, the guy wasn't a saint, and some steps he took were deranged, to put it lightly. Even still, I went too aggressive on him and those connected, even claiming Blocky was likely manipulated to his side. Said lapses in emotional intelligence were almost repeated shortly after when the Karna response was developed, which gives me even more shame. That combined with how late in my career these ugly moments transpired, and how successful the Blocky rant performed in spite of that. Whatever decent criticisms I made of Blocky's rant and the ensuing drama, the fact remains I was callous in my actions. Which, considering my stances against toxicity and cancel culture behavior, I should have known to quit this foolish feud before it even happened. I know I've apologized a lot for this video, but it's a heavy blunder to let go of. Besides the points I already touched on when discussing how I goofed, there was another I couldn't help but feel guilty of, which was unrelated to the main subjects. These related to somebody Box ranted on in 2019 named Cecil Circle, which Blocky expressed problems with. Some points I made there were also questionable, specifically ones about his immaturity and mental health.
Even if he had some immaturity, at least with the amateurish points, how does that compare to Cecil's own immaturity? It also implies this subject is off limits because he was 15 and emotionally unstable, which I previously established are flimsy shields to give.
Bold to go that far since Blocky didn't imply Cecil couldn't be discussed. His issue had to do more with Box's treatment of the kid being at odds with his claims of helping artists. To Blocky's standards, Cecil wasn't all too bad besides being childish, and Box shouldn't have taken him this seriously. It doesn't help when Box insulted him further in a pinned comment after Cecil closed that account. Whatever tantrums Cecil threw weren't relevant in this context either. Okay, other than this example.
Package. Buddy boy. This kid is asking about killing himself in a post that seems like a mental breakdown. And you respond with what he's making the post about isn't a big deal.
Congratulations, Blocky! You've manufactured an interesting way to cancel out any questioning of suicidal ideation, even if it's for petty reasons like here.
I mean, it's rude in general to question why someone is considering suicide, regardless of their reasons. It's clearly not helpful to the one who's mentally unstable.
I'm not going to shame Cecil for having those thoughts. I feel sorry about that. But his reason in this case isn't at all understandable. Not receiving gift art or whatever else you want doesn't realistically end the world.
Bruh, apparently you need a valid reason now to feel this way. One that apparently involves the world ending. Yeah, I can think Cecil's reason is really petty, but some things are best left unsaid.
Frankly, I really hate the implication that this bizarre reasoning can't be criticized. Like we're just supposed to let these thoughts flow, without any input.
That's arguably better than invalidating the concerns like Box did, dickass. I've said enough about this train wreck as is. Let's just dive into number 4.
Aiden Pierce did nothing wrong.
Philosophers have been trying to answer the question, whatever happened to Deviant Cringe, for the past 9 years. Oh wait, did I say philosophers? I meant my grumpy ass when I was 16. And I don't know why I asked, since that question was answered immediately.
I heard Deviant Cringe got a new account after being hacked. I wonder what DA users and trends he's decided to rant on now. Hopefully it's gonna be good. Oh. Well, the animation community is fucking dead.
In essence, Deviant Cringe, somebody originally known for being part of the main DeviantArt ranting community, did a complete switcheroo in video topics. Shortly after restarting due to his accounts being compromised, he shifted his priorities to cartoon news and discussion, even though he kept the Deviant Cringe name going for a while. Being misleading and cynical like that? Well above board to speak against. But like many previous subjects, my bias dominated my ability to even think clearly. Worse here when it was a guy shifting from a community I liked to one I despised, the animation fandom. fandom. Most of this though was actually a response to a rant the guy made about Cartoon Network's schedule for a particular week. He was a devout follower in the Teen Titans Go hate brigade, even declaring it the Satan of all animation.
What is up everyone, I am Deviant Cringe. So do you remember way back when Johnny Test used to be the Satan of all animation? Well, yeah, now it's a little bit different, it's fucking Teen Titans Go, yeah.
That video was undeniably salty in some way. If only mine wasn't.
Basically, a lot of these like-minded people will say nothing new, lynch all the shows, or even animators, whine and moan, and basically be destructive because cartoons are serious business and they have to be treated that way. The red flag about him being a pandering animation fantard is inscribed in this screenshot. Yeah, he's using a Steven Universe background.
Stereotyping is the best form of constructive criticism, so I've been told. Even some of my interjections to Deviant Cringe's rant were unhinged, to say the least, especially in regards to my cracked beliefs against feminism, something Deviant Cringe didn't even mention.
During the whole week, only on Friday at 7 PM, there will be one episode of Steven Universe.
Holy new search button! Thank you, Cartoon Network. I unfortunately don't have to deal with you spamming this leftist pandering propaganda into our faces. And back to PPG, I at least admit there's less feminazi bullshit on the schedule that week. Sadly, it doesn't make up for the cartoon fandom's animosity towards specific reboots and spin-offs and their double standards about equal rights.
Relax, white boy. They aren't gonna sterilize dudes, force feed you soy milk, and make you woke. Different aliens would do that, and I'm happy. All those parts made me look insane, if not some kind of edgelord. Then again, I've proven I was really into that in my angsty teen years. Despite those moments, my unhinged takes and toonhead bias aren't even why this is going so high up. Hell, it's not even related to Deviant Cringe in any capacity. Well, not the person, but rather Deviant Art Cringe. Sometime that February, a fangirl of an artist then named Marcos Power 1996, or Mega Shonen 1, confronted me for making fun of his work in a different video, and that I must drink holy water because of it. She sounded more entitled because of her subscriber status. There is a chance that this person was a troll, but that's the least of my problems. This whiner, ironically enough, resulted in an explosive reaction on my end.
I also hate how Luna demands that I respect her opinion on whatever because she's subscribed to me. Well, if that's the case, get the fuck off my channel if you don't know shit about me. I'm not appeasing to your easily offended ass followers. I do my own thing.
Smooth going, Baguette. This isn't welcoming to newcomers in the slightest. The genuine anger in my voice was bound to drive people away, and I knew that too since I acknowledged my outburst.
Pardon me being emotional there, but it pissed me off that I wanted these children I don't support go and sub to me just to complain or have no use being subscribed if they don't even watch my videos.
Yet it remained in the video as it was because I was very picky about who was following my content. Like I had any control over that, and acting this way, insulting your fans, will be alienating. If nothing else, I should have managed my temper, or left those comments alone. These past couple videos I had a hard time determining their placements, putting all their flaws into consideration. But I'll say that at least each video up to this point have redeeming qualities in spite of serious faults. Number 4 also has the benefit of being the oldest video appearing on this list, so there's only so harsh I can be towards that one. For the final 3 though, it'll be hard to find anything worth saving. I've had a very love-hate relationship with the commentary community, especially in my first 4 years on YouTube. The influence they left behind was undeniable, inspiring me to riff and criticize videos myself. However, from 2016 to 2018, my values would repeatedly be at odds. Between controversies about backdrops, avatars, morality, various means of argumentation, it was all a mess. I even supported a fight against the political correctness of many big-name slideshow commentators, led by a group called the Alt-CC. Yeah, alt, as in alt-right. Probably not the smartest endorsement. Unfortunately, I kept holding a grudge with the so-called Neo-CC for over a year, separating myself from the scene at large. But other than brief jabs against them in certain projects, I didn't discuss my views at length. That was until July 2018, where this mentality fueled a response to someone named Dwebley, now known as Toganium Talks. Yes, the entire video was built off a grudge again. Thanks for asking. For additional context, this was of a commentary Toga made against Professor Cartoons, which itself was a response to a review of the Ink Lemonade episode from SpongeBob, done by Cosmodor. Shit, that took an uncomfortable turn real fast. With the curse of hindsight anyway. Cosmodore's grooming actions weren't known of by this point, nor was it relevant for anyone's arguments. Instead, it's caveman shit, another instance of my biases clouding my rational thought. The beginning shows evidence that I just wanted an excuse to bash the commentary community and Toga's tastes.
He has some presence within the commentary community. If that's not enough proof he's mentally ill, the tired shitpost memes will change your mind. Lots of Wacko's World baloney, and 2 tumors combined into 1. Knowing that, his commentaries are already going to be crap automatically, and actually watching them will not change your opinion.
Yeah, apparently one sense of humor is evidence for their videos being trash, and being mentally ill because my angsty asshole phase didn't quite end yet. Just over half my interjections were used to insult Toga and the CC, rather than provide actually decent criticism.
That being said, this video.
Holy hell, the way you say video is more cringe-inducing than how I say it. How is that possible?
Meet Professor Cartoons, formerly known as MegaDudeTV. Despite me being in the CC now, I still enjoy his content.
Your connections with the commentary community are completely pointless and amount to nothing here. No one gives a damn if you're a part of that cesspit. Lastly, you must have some sort of ADD if you're distracted by the grayscale effect. But hey, you sound like the kind of guy who would adore bright, flashy colors. Problem Solvers is the right show for you. Check that shit out.
Think how you will about the CC. Was this bad-mouthing at all productive, even under the low standards of ragebait slop? By the end, I even used my own preference and characters as a point against Toga, since I saw anime-style avatars as overdone.
If you want to be good in the commentary game, here are a few suggestions. First and foremost, change your stick bitch anime scum to a less overused medium. You seem to love Wacko's World, so why not switch to Wacko for a little while?
Don't ever use weeaboo stick bitch cringe. Use what I like. Warner Brothers Duck XPs and badly drawn cowboys. Even the few points that don't resort to insults or passive aggression are super basic. There's far less passion in those compared to the antagonistic bits, so when the video isn't rude for idiotic reasons, it's as dull as dollar store pancakes. Honestly, besides all the petty context surrounding this whole mess, there's so little to actually discuss here. It's low effort and was criticized reasonably for lacking compelling arguments. Choosing Toga as a scapegoat for the CC was a ridiculous idea anyway, because they were already a bandwagon within that circle before my plans to respond. Toga even disowned their commentary by that point, and even if you did hate the community this passionately like the alt-CC did, I doubt this was any fun to watch.
Diversity is what makes most communities stand out. I mean, through personality, not through their fucking gender or racial identity.
Diversity is great, but not the woke kind. Thanks for virtue signaling about diversity of thought during this part. I sure owned the lib cucks with that one. The only other thing worth noting was that I made part of this video a warning about the EU Copyright Act dubbed Article 13, which was being pushed at the time. Kind of ironic for a video uploaded on the 4th of July. It wasn't that relevant at all in context besides defending cartoons using a grayscale filter for copyright avoidance. Highly doubt he even knew of that act during that upload. Said law, along with net neutrality in 2017, I got alarmist and preachy about in general. It even bled into other videos covered on this list. But hey, at least those were fairly important things policy-wise. Number 2 on the other hand, well, it was true to its number.
Then we turn Bubba into a soda.
Irony comes in many forms, some subliminally, but you want to know something really funny? Throughout 2017, a fad about 3-pointed stress relief doohickeys stressed me out to fucking purgatory. I exaggerate a tad, but if you were to genuinely show me fidget spinners that summer, my reaction likely would have been hair trigger. And you want to know what sparked this rant? Them being offered at an event I attended.
They were having fidget spinners at a picnic I was at, and honestly, I'm glad they didn't force me to get one, but I did not like how that turned out.
Now, I'm sure there was valuable social commentary to be grasped out of this trend. I still have an annoyance with unavoidable fads like those, because I find it an insult to being an individual. The lethal dose of brain rot one could find online about these toys at the time was also irritating. It took me a while to gain acceptance of these hobbies though, and this rant was easily my most spiteful up to that point. Curiously, this was also the first video to officially show my face. This was a mistake. Of all the rants I've produced, this has the least substance out of them all. It's to date one of my shortest, not even reaching 6 minutes. And yet, it has the content of half that. First failure, the opening 2 minutes are spent introducing the topic, completely unscripted. The first 50 seconds of which just declare the face reveal and getting interrupted by sun rain.
And, well, it's frickin' raining! when it's sunny out. What the frick is going on?
Believe it or not, that's the highlight of this whole video. Rain falling under clear sunshine. It's like nature was telling me not to make it, but I didn't listen. On top of that mess, so little of this intro actually has to do with fidget spinners. For half of it, I go completely off subject about YouTube business.
Granted, I have been seeing weird view counts, like part 2 of my Go on a Mid-Way commentator video has been getting much more views than, about 100 more views than the first part did for some reason or another.
And even when the IRL segment ends, I briefly comment about more random shit for 30 seconds. This makes me very frowny face.
Is too...
So, after all that filler, what's my actual point against this apparently unholy fidget?
As months have went by, you have been unable to avoid even the sight of a fidget spinner, and in the city, a store, or worse yet, school. Yeah, the place where you're supposed to pay attention and learn, not get brainwashed by a damn circular piece of plastic.
Oh, it's just their oversaturation, isn't it? Also brainwashing in schools or some shit. You sure I wasn't the brainwashed one?
I'll be looking at this in a more professional viewpoint. Give or take some bias here and there.
Yeah, very professional. So fluent in knowledge, I barely even said diddly squat, regardless of bias. Also, nah, this was all bias. My whole argument was rooted in feeling alien for questioning the hype, shunning the world because of it. And my confirmation for this was a zombie minion toy made of straw.
Metal fidget spinner.
This imaginary being is why Western civilization is doomed. This video, unironically, sounds like that.
In this day and age, you can be given such a high status for owning an uncommon, 3-pointed stress reliever. Those major accomplishments people should be loved for? Thrown out into a vat of acid to replace with a freaking haircut.
We get it. Fuck the vapid masses. I'm sure I wasn't spoiled myself by stupid gizmos as a youngin'. What the hell is a video racer camera? I wanted it, whatever it was.
I was down!
Fun fact, everyone who has purchased a or used one is given a free disability cloak. Magically gives you ADHD and severe autism at the same time, because no one else would buy these plastic predators.
Okay, I guess we cross into genuine ableism now. Masking really is pain. If anything, people with sensory issues like the conditions mentioned had the best reason to own a fidget spinner. I wasn't calling out ADHD cosplay. That's too challenging, so I just punched down on myself. Also, getting this upset by a goddamn stress toy likely isn't normal behavior, I'm sure. Speaking of mentally unwell.
Before you know it, there might be a law in some areas to own one.
This is a joke, right? Considering how genuinely mad I was earlier, who's to say this wasn't half serious? I don't even know, and I made this moronic rant.
If that ever goes into effect, I'm going to cry in a corner and hang myself.
My CD collection sucks.
Remember folks, irony poisoning should be prevented, or you'll turn out like my 2017-18 self. Delusions aside, governments would be more likely to regulate against them than enforce ownership of one. Pretty much every argument I made here is detached from any form of reality. I guess this explains why my whole hypothesis against fidget spinners and society...
Let's face it, the only people who get fidget spinners are ones that want to get popular, or in the lowest common denominator.
Was basically repeated verbatim 2 minutes later.
Let's face it, the only people who are willingly going out of their way to buy these dildo-shaped doohickeys is that they want to join the crowd or bank in tons of YouTube ad revenue.
Pathetic. Feckless even. This whole idea was a brain fart.
This is BracketNeutron signing out, and whatever you do, don't ever give in to these.
Well, too late. I bit the bullet. I've been contaminated.
Ha ha ha! Take that, old Bracket!
Also, before you have a meltdown past Bracket, don't worry. This is actually a hand spinner. Totally different. I think it's impressive that this rant carried less weight than even my very earliest attempts. My first critique directed at someone other than umbrella communities or myself had far more to say and was better presented. Fuck, an unlisted rant on gibberish bot comments from 2015 was more focused than this. Maybe my rant against the wider public here wouldn't be so ridiculous had I not used friggin' fidget toys as to why our culture's decayed. And yet, after this big of a low point, we still have one last regret left to go. Perhaps the most interesting of the bunch.
Ooh, spooky!
And finally, number 1.
Final score, -62 out of 10.
February 24th, 2016. On this day, a man-child was born. According to this YouTube comment. Yes, this creature, full name, shows with morals yes, Teen Titans Go and the Nut Shack no, was a recurring persona I would put on, satirizing the immaturity of certain internet communities and stuff deemed cringe. Mainly Go animators, cartoon fans, and most notably, user groups such as the Video Game Cartoon Police or Integra Good User Alliance, VGCP and IGWA for short. I also noticed attempts at commentaries from said communities, all of which very low effort and poorly reasoned. Most of these were on a surface level troll named The Bez Channel, so he was covered in that pilot. As a character, Shows Good Morals Yes was a dumb, butthurt, egocentric, and hypocritical figure who was devoted to morals and cartoons, despite not being a respectable or morally sound member of the public himself. He was easily offended by contrary opinions on media and interests he loved, and explosive to things and users he hated. Yes, that includes me. He would also treat the consensus from groups he liked as gospel, a standard all media must follow. Even his rare happy moments came off as psychotic. While not a complete opposite of me, he was meant to represent people and content which I found particularly nasty. Shows Good Morals Yes was unlikable and ill-tempered, sometimes sadistic. And to enhance his unpleasantness, his videos were produced ineptly on purpose. They were recorded sloppily, mostly improvised, and had terrible and minimal editing. It represented nearly everything I found wrong with awful content in one neat package, a blueprint on how not to create videos. Despite some concerns optics-wise with his series in hindsight, given how frequently I mocked mental disabilities, it was definitive in getting my profound, if cynical views of these groups off the ground. Most episodes wouldn't even be eligible for this list anyway, since only a few were recorded after 2016. In fact, by the following summer, the character was retired, given a finale video to conclude his run. It was mainly inspired by changing tides within Go Animate adjacent spaces, and the trend of self-proclaimed mature users. I'm not like other Go animators, I'm smart and can handle criticism. I became increasingly annoyed by those types, some who were blatant ass kissers. I was also expressing fatigue in the format since my interest was waning. My views would be more relevant in a rant I released a month before said finale, calling it a trend of pseudo-intellectual Go anime refugees appropriating the language of their critics. While I would get overboard trying to exclude those followers, neither that or the swimmy finale are on this list. Fast forward to September 2019, an intrusive thought birthed an attempted revival of the character. What came from this was a video listed as his epic return. But let's be blunt, this was always doomed to fail, and I managed to screw this up so awfully, it even exposed my own worst qualities. Let's start with the first mistake of all this, the idea of reviving Shows and Morals Yes to begin with. While Go commentators were still kicking in their own bubbles like always, relevance had considerably dried up. It wasn't until 2020 where they'd see a small revival. He's more of a product from a bygone era. I was aware of this though, as I would update him drastically for his revival. So drastically, it was pretty much him in name only. And the reason for that is down to one simple fact. Shows and Morals Yes has always represented the things I disliked most. He was even used as a straw man in some proper videos.
But faggot Pooptron 37, they aged them up, so they are child porn.
Yeah, fuck the excuses, it still counts.
Here's the thing. A lot of what Shows and Morals Yes was used to ridicule in his prime, I either grew tired of or became chill with. Thus, the source for his strong emotions wasn't quite there in that revival. Not doing it for 2 years likely didn't help. So for most parts, he's just blandly speaking against random crap. Mainly things I enjoy are my obsessions. Not exactly uncharted ground, but something feels off.
Because we're back, and I'm back for my fellow fans, I'm gonna make a bunch of epic rants on various topics. So, the topic, my first topic, is going to be about Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. I was about to say 4 for a moment, but that game's not even freaking real. Anyway, this game is, kind of gross. Yucky.
It's already very different from the original format. The production value may still be subpar, but his expressions are weirdly sedate for the most part. This was despite his main draw being his extreme emotions, negative or positive. His calm moments were very sparse. Guess even complete fools like him eventually do grow up. However, his temper wasn't completely lost. So, what was my main grievance throughout much of 2019? Right-wing political influencers and extremists, naturally.
Come on, I want to express my free speech! Let me express my free speech! Yeah, Rail Fan Army, you can go and attack me, but I'm not bowing down to your weird, communist BS. Okay? And the reason I kind of like Swanky is because he kind of appeals to my general mindset. He is so me. He looks like he hates liberals.
Well, Swanky does have one thing in common.
Them, there, up, down, left, right, oh you earthlings and your little pronouns.
I'm not saying it isn't humorous, but it's so obviously rooted in caring way too much about the right's agenda. Name a stupid controversy connected to the right from 2018 to 19. It's probably in there. From the soy panic and it being used as an adjective for weakness.
This came out 2004, and yet the character models look like they look like soy. They look like soy versions.
To the decrepit city of San Francisco, conservatives hate.
Or as I like calling it, Soy Francisco. Because it's all filled with a bunch of liberal cocks. Like, leftist cocks. Leftism is bad.
To even the T-Series vs. PewDiePie feud that got co-opted by the right, with the far left portraying the latter as a Nazi bartender. $100 if you can correctly guess what my opinion was.
Just saying, T-Series needs to die, and just subscribe to PewDiePie right now.
Even the super absurd stuff like mythical car gooners he preached as a leftist moral issue.
Look, enough. This is why liberalism has gone too far. Look, you are all you're for incest, you're for bestiality, you're for zoosexuality, you're for pedophilia. But most importantly, you are for car autophilia. Fetish for wheels. I don't like that.
There was absolutely no subtlety that I wanted to dig at reactionary righties who I was obsessed against. This was only a month after my videos on static cling naysayers. What's actually funny is that I previously used the character to mock politically opposite SJWs, most egregiously so in this clip from late 2016.
You really do fail at being advertiser friendly in your average Hillary supporter's eyes.
Shut the poop up! Hillary should have won because she was a woman and for no reason. Chauvinist supporters are racist, sexist, misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic, transphobic, and patriarchal scum! I hate white people, so poop off!
That's a very specific set of views you can't use to generalize the far right. Both are politically radical and ultra-reactionary, but that's where the similarities mostly end. Sure, Shosumos, yes, was never that ideologically consistent, however, his politics were rarely ever the spotlight. For good reason. That previous clip should have been an outlier, but the fact they became so transparent for this revival, given his relation to me, speaks to how jaded and absorbed I was watching political brain poison. I was an unironic fan of short stack horsecock aficionado Vosh that year, biggest regret of my life, and on places like Twitter, doom posting was common. If anything, I became plenty of things I would have laughed at during Shosumoro's Yes's peak. Politics aside, it's even at odds with how I felt earlier that year when the previously discussed cancel culture rant was developed. Gotta carry the flame of moral justice, even if it means being an insufferable, whiny wreck of a dude. Even if I did keep the personality more faithful to the original series, it would have likely been just as forced. Perhaps even a political liability, being an otherwise progressive figure who mocked man-children and related interests, and viewing the original videos under a microscope. As my own edge faded away, it was gonna affect the character driven by my edgy attitude. The problem wasn't necessarily that I lost it, but that my mentality was in such a gutter and my creativity got stifled. But even beyond the context within this phony return, external factors literally the night before release affected this project. That very night, my troubled mentality led to outbursts which got me kicked out of 2 servers around the same time. One was already hostile to me and I planned to leave, but the other kick stung more in the moment. For the record, my removal was within good reason, since I was warned for days about the possibility if I didn't stop doom posting. Sadly, the guilt led to another major upset. My head was in such rough shape, I made a public statement around midnight on Twitter. Said tweet would be linked in a pinned comment for the show's Tomorrow's Yes revival. A major goal I cited from that point onward was to stop with the heavy political preaching. This was questionably prefaced by selfish fears about my image, which some criticized, but it was an actual problem I recognized. Following that, my head was still beating me up on whether or not that video should even come out. So yes, even before its premiere, I was aware the major flaw that caused trouble away from this was present in plain sight. Obviously, the video would release anyway. I fell into sunk cost fallacy, because even with how ugly the project was, was, I didn't want such work to be wasted. It was more effort than most other unreleased stuff involving him. Thus, the pinned comment contradicting the video's tone was added as a flimsy band-aid immediately. Of course, I feel I made the wrong move. I even considered deleting the video sometime in 2020 because I hated what it represents. Less the politics, but my own mental obstructions. Unfortunately, even if it's been less apparent, I've still fallen into similar pits to where I was during September 2019 afterwards. They were reduced and usually less intense, but rarely did they go away. The dismal news of 2020 and isolation from 2021 kept me depressed. My dour political views would continue to be there during those years. The whole situations with Mr. Enter from 2022 and Blocky 2 years after could also be described as irrational feelings overcoming me. Even as recent as the 2024 election results and 2025 inauguration, I would relapse into my fears and doomer mindset. That election may have given me slight PTSD, and I feel that could have been prevented. Not by a change in outcome, but to refrain from all the doom scrolling and overthinking which drowned me before and after. Only recently have I been recovering from that stress. It just sucks that it takes so little bad news to make me snap. Undoing a lot of that recovery. One reason I've had to step off social media was because most of it's designed to upset you, which is terrible for a fractured soul like mine, and it all connects back to the same struggles of my worst ever video, a complex which results in overhyping negative trends to irrational levels, a mental flaw I still need to improve, so this project will forever remind me of that. I'm not asking for sympathy though, since most of this is my own fault. In short, Shows with Morals Yes was a character best relegated to 2016-17 when he most belonged. As I grew courage to criticize the things I used to rely on that character to showcase, eventually gaining the confidence and intellect where he was no longer needed, he was bound to show cracks through any attempted comebacks. And this #1 failure of mine is crystal clear proof on why his revival was a bad idea. I know it's corny to get this introspective, but it's better than leaving my ego unchecked like I used to. Deep down, I've still got many things to improve on, a few of which feel impossible. That said, I try keeping my head up at all times. Self-awareness of such flaws, both in videos and myself, is a blessing to have. Some may wonder why I've kept the majority of these blunders up despite how bad a few of them were. Well, it's been a virtue of mine for ages. I preferred to keep my mistakes up both for historical reasons and a reminder of what not to do. So far, besides outdated updates and that awfully worded bit on CSAM artists, very few of my comments feel worth hiding. Even my ableist jokes and batshit marks against feminism way back when, I can't take that seriously. Honestly, it pains me that I've heard more vile comments from actual influencers, and I sure as hell ain't that. Having such a low profile on the online ecosystem has been another blessing in disguise. Less from the lower risk of getting sniped for my statements, but that I didn't compromise the human in me. Humans naturally make mistakes. Humans are sadly also natural hypocrites. Despite that, it's my self-awareness and persistence that's kept me grounded, even in my depressive bursts. And to all the fans and friends who've stuck with me, however long it's been, I can't thank you all enough. My life, or lack thereof, has taken very interesting turns. I'm glad I have actual friends who respect my human flaws, but can criticize me in healthy ways. I'd also like to dedicate this section as special thanks to creators who've inspired my work as they've shaped who I am today, for better or worse. Special shoutouts go to Cinemassacre, Vinesauce, Kid Icarus, Slayercoon, Mr. Enter, Rebel Taxi, SMG4, Automagic Critic, Spacey McSpacer, The Wonky Angle, Sean Shanson, H Bomber Guy, Todd in the Shadows, LeoFan93, Guru Larry, numerous artists and close IRL friends. You've all kept me going. I'm not planning to quit this YouTube thing yet, so there's still a chance this list may need adjustments down the line. And hey, I welcome discussion of what your least favorites are in the comments. Maybe even mention your faves since I'm not doing a list for that. There's also some other nearly finished scripts I've still yet to record I need to quit neglecting. My motivation can just be temperamental like that. But anyways, I've said plenty enough for today. This is your dorky lizard bud, BracketNeutron, signing off.